Kalki was wearing a long cloak when he entered the forest. The trickling of the rainwater, with the smell of tangerine, was enough for Kalki to feel he was in a very alien place. The sound was harsh and cold, and the wind swept against him harshly. He had wrapped himself in warm clothes as he sat in front of the fire, across from Lakshmi, Arjun and Bala. Bala was a friend of Kalki's, and he was one of the few who knew how to handle a make. When Kalki had come to meet Bala for his help to defeat the Mlechas, Bala was busy knocking off some drunkards who were disturbing in the taverns. He was 6 feet 9 inches in height, with a frame that was heavier than both Arjun and Kalki combined. His face was covered with a thick, bushy beard, and his eyes were beady black, with a strange coldness about them. Kalki began, addressing Arjun. "Tell us about them." Arjun nodded. They arrived riding on horses and were wearing black clothes. They had masks on as they rampaged and killed the ones who interfered. I escaped at the right moment. More so, I was no threat to them. They had weapons, but not the ordinary swords we see around here. The hilt was the same as the ones we saw, but the blade was curved from the top. "A scimitar," Lakshmi answered. "A what?" Bala scratched his head. "It's a backhanded weapon used by the Dakshinis. One slice and it can go straight through your bones." "Bones, you say? I shall knock sense into them, I tell you." "We have to play smart," Lakshmi added, "and not dumb. They have Kalki and Arjun's father. We need to do it swiftly and carefully since we don't have weapons." Bala grunted. Playing swift and careful wasn't part of his dictionary, Kalki thought. "They are most probably cow bandits, looking for food," Kalki said. "They have become more prominent since the tribal's inclusion. Bloody outcasts. They must rot and die," Bala scoffed. "But why did they want your father?" Lakshmi asked. "They need someone to herd the cows, take responsibility, while they feast on them." Arjun responded. "This is my reasoning. Because other than this, I don't see any other point of the kidnapping." Kalki looked at Arjun. "How many cows were they able to take?" "They managed to get 3 big ones as the others were hidden inside the stable." Kalki nodded. "We don't have much time, days or hours. Mlechas are unpredictable. We don't even know how to find them," Bala said. "Division of labor," Kalki suggested. "Lakshmi and I will go to the city of Indragarh, which is a day's journey on horseback, and get the weaponry we need. You and Arjun try to find the bandits, but if you do find them, don't go headlong against them, or you'll not survive it." Arjun nodded obediently. "I will signal you if we do find them. Just know they would be somewhere around that signal." Kalki patted his smart brother. "How will we manage to get weapons from the city?" Lakshmi asked matter-of-factly. Kalki cleared his throat. "You said you have your aunt there, right? And she works in the government. So she can help us with the weapons." "You mean illegally giving you army weapons?" No, not going to happen. More like borrowing, please," he pleaded, "for our father. I wouldn't have asked you otherwise. There must be some other way than to use weapons." "Any other way than violence?" "There is no other way," laughed off Bala. "How did you get a big make like that here?" He hugged it closely as if it were his child, and kissed the top of it. "Baba." His father and Bala are one of the few people who actually carry a weapon in this village, otherwise it's frowned upon here, Arjun said. "Lakshmi, I saw those people. The moment they see us, without weapons, they will kill us without even blinking. They had no remorse when they killed off our men. And while the serpent is deciding what to do about it, it'll be too late. We have to act individually and fast." Lakshmi sighed and reluctantly nodded. General Takshak knocked on Lord Vasuki's door. He had been away for the entire day and at night, but had been summoned at this hour nonetheless. As he stood idly outside the door, he could hear the moans that came from inside. Vasuki, a father of three, didn't care about matrimonial fidelity. Pleasure, for him, came in a variety of ages and colors. Since the pact had been made, Vasuki was considered a strong and influential figure of one of the mightiest northern states. Initially, these cities run by Manavs were often the ones that would ridicule the Tiavanbialis, call them names, discriminate against them, and speak ill. But now, they were all respected. Takshak had walked on the streets of the mining town, up till the lotus garden, and everyone just watched him in awe. A tribal being the head of security for a state? Manavs couldn't believe it was even possible in this lifetime. Though most of them didn't know their history. Just after the breaking, when the world had collapsed, and the plague had vanquished the remaining lands of the country, and the tribes, the Tiavanbialis and Manavs had worked together. In fact, they were the same. The tribal identity had been created due to pressure by the internal politics when both of them differed. Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma were the spiritual leaders of the Manavs after the breaking. They supported the upper castes, while the others didn't. They realized the Trimurti was worried about them and decided to distance them. They called themselves Tiavanbialis and they built settlements in different areas. Soon, the evils of war hindered them from forging any lasting attempts at peace, and continuous warfare led to tremendous losses for the Tiavanbialis. Egos were tarnished. They hid in the rough terrains, the cold mountains or the forests. Many continued fighting, while others kept to themselves, pledging for internal penance such as the Vanars, who were the worshippers of monkeys. There were others who began cannibalism, such as the Pisaks. And now after so many years, things had changed. The door opened and it was a girl barely in her 20s with a naked frame. Takshak didn't look at her, and his eyes darted at the blanket-wrapped Lord Vasuki. I apologize. I will come later. Please enter, the girl was leaving. The girl nodded. She put on her clothes and stormed out of the room. Such a fine ass. Vasuki laughed as he poured himself some wine from the side table, where a bottle and a goblet were placed. In this town, there is something about Manav girls. They are wild. I'm sure, my lord. Takshak had a straight face. None of these trivial things mattered, since in the culture of the Nagas, the warriors were supposed to have no distraction, but knowledge and strength. Austerity and penance were foremost. Oh, I wish you would unwind a little and watch them, but you can't, for to service me you paid a hefty price. He looked down to where Takshaka's privates were. I wonder, do you ever regret it? Never, my lord. Service for our lord is my top priority. Great, he smiled. Lord Vasuki had a very sharp nose, according to what Takshak had noticed of him. How's our fat friend doing? Not being suspicious, my lord, he answered about Kuvera, the wretched man, and the king of Yakshs, the rotten and dirty thieves and merchants. They were horrible in nature, and Takshak hated them more than the Manavs. That's grand. I don't want him to shift alliances like the time he stole the money from us. He laughed. What a pretty sight it was when Kali made him surrender the stone and made us allies even though I hated him. But hey, we needed to do all of this for a change, didn't we? Yes, my lord. Which makes me come to the main topic. Lord Vasuki began with a thoughtful pose, the same he was sculptured in back at the Nagpuri. I want you to follow Vedanta, and see if he's up to something. Leave our fat friend for the moment. He isn't the person we should be worried about since he is savoring in the glory of sweet victory right now. The Manav is being reluctant and frustrated, and frustration could lead to serious consequences. I want you to just spy on him. Take no more than 2 men with you and stay 50 yards away. He will be starting his useless journey around the city, promising everyone that everything is all right and helping them in their daily affairs. But I am certain he will be making arrangements with someone inside to topple us, and I want you to poison them before he is able to do it. Once he gives us a reason to betray him, Kali will carry out his execution. But why wouldn't he do it now, my lord? Because Kali knows Vedanta's useful now. He needs a face for the city to be calmed. After all, no one wants a people's revolution on our hands just after a battle. Am I not right? Yes, my lord. Good. Vasuki smiled. Just don't die on me. You are the only person I trust, my friend. Takshak smiled. He was just a soldier out of many for Vasuki's army. But when Takshak had single-handedly protected Vasuki's wife and children back in their lands, he was given a step up. Soon the post of a general turned into something worn and precious, for Lord Vasuki had become more than just a leader for him. And with that Takshak bowed and departed from the room, with the new mission he had been assigned. Sweat beads began to trickle down Kalki's chin as he made his way to the Sarpanch's house. At the stable outside, he was met with the sight of 2 muscled men who were dozing late at night. Kalki confronted 2 horses, who instantly neighed at the look of the strangers. Kalki hushed at them, and with the help of Lakshmi, he was able to pull the 2 horses aside. The Sarpanch of the village was the only person wealthy enough to have horses at his disposal. Horses were quick compared to the bullocks, especially in the current circumstances. Kalki got up on one horse, while Lakshmi sat astride the other one. Unlike Lakshmi, he had little knowledge about horses, and it took him time to bring it under his control. Use the rein and pull it towards yourself to control it, and then slowly push towards the direction you want to go, she whispered. Kalki nodded. He didn't like the idea of stealing from the Sarpanch, who was now busy at the meeting with the newsmonger, discussing the next plan of action against these unknown mlechas. As he got out away from the muscle men, he told Lakshmi to ride close to the meeting to hear what exactly was going on. From far off, he could see a huge group of people, mostly men, standing around the Sarpanch, quarreling and mumbling amongst themselves. Kalki had camouflaged himself in the forest so he would be invisible to the eyes of the Sarpanch, who would have otherwise known that his horse was being taken by a dairy farmer's son. We should leave. Lakshmi's voice came from behind. Shush. Kalki's fingers swept across his lips. Kalki heard the loud rants. We won't risk our lives. Let us send a letter to the closest town to get an army. No one will give us an army. I have heard that life in this village is going to get tough. We should investigate ourselves. No one cares about us. Rants continued to pour in. One even had the audacity to say that perhaps it wasn't the mlechas, but Vishnu himself. He must have run away from his life back here. No use of saving him. He is probably dead already. No, he isn't, Kalki convinced himself. He had learnt all about the bandits. They would keep the person until the person was resourceful to them, or at least that's what he had been taught at the Gurukul during the warfare classes. These classes were few in number in comparison to health studies, cooking and agriculture classes, but just the most interesting one of the lot. He was one of the few along with Arjun who had been to the Gurukul, an isolated temple that housed students from across the land, fed them, and taught them. Kalki had been forced to go initially, but he understood why Vishnu wanted him to study. To survive adversity, one must be knowledgeable. Due to that knowledge, he now knew about his enemy. Kalki maneuvered the horse and went up the hill, his cloak brushing against the twigs on the forest floor. As he came out of the clearing, the sound of the hooves had grown monotonous. The trampling of the leaves didn't annoy him. The smell of flowers of various kinds had imparted a pleasant touch to the night. Why do you need weapons? You can beat them single-handedly. You overestimate my strength. If there was one bandit, I would have done what you said, but there are many. Humans are worse than a crocodile when it comes to violence. Fine. How many do you plan to borrow? Bala said, he can muster up 5 more people from the tavern to aid us, so we have more than we need. As for you, me, I will go. You don't want to. No, it's just that I never presumed you thought girls are allowed to fight. Kalki narrowed his eyes. Why not? If boys fight, then why can't girls? He paused when she took her time. So you plan to take a hefty bit of the loot back? Perhaps, Kalki nodded. But Kalki was apprehensive about using weapons during the combat.